please welcome Dale up to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite to talk tonight. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit in this next minute about fire and the potential impacts of climate change and fire on biodiversity. And I wanted to start with this map, which I've seen a lot over the last few years. This map showing those red areas being the areas that burned in those big 2019, 20 bushfires that has such a big impact on the region, on our ecosystems, our life, property. And I want to point out that this fire was obviously unprecedented. It burnt a larger area than it had ever been burnt on record. And it had an enormous impact on biodiversity, so I'll discuss in a moment, but it also fits with the trend. And that trend is large fires occurring around the world. Big, unprecedented fires for their regions. So we have our fires in 2019, 20, we have huge fires burning right now in Canada, 4 million hectares burning. Massive fires in Siberia not long ago, 13 to 15 million hectares burnt in Arctic meadows and tundra, and many other fires like that occurring around the world. And it also fits in with a trend in Australia. And so even though it's shot off the scale and off the charts in terms of what we've seen before, it fits with the trend we can see here, burnt area increasing over recent decades instead of the y-axis is the area burnt by wildfire. In our forest ecosystems in particular, we can see that curve going up overall in the middle there. And then this final graph here shows burn area in relation to fire burning in autumn and winter, which relates to something that Mark said before about the expanding window of fire in our landscapes. Fires never used to burn very often in autumn and winter, at least not large fires. And we're seeing an exponential increase in fires as that the window for fire expands over time, and that's due to climate. When we think about fire, there's basically 4 switches that need to be turned on for a wildfire to occur. The one that people most think about is fuel, so vegetation biomass is the obvious thing. And the other one that people will quickly think about is ignition. You need a spark to start a fire. But the really important one in Australian forest ecosystems and a lot of ecosystems in Australia in general is fuel dryness. You can't burn something that's wet. And fire weather. So there needs to be the weather conducive to rapid fire spread when we talk about things like high winds, high temperatures, low humidity. FFDI, which you can see on the x-axis here, is a measure of fire danger. It informs those signs we see on the road when we're driving around and they determine whether or not we can fight a fire, whether it's a total fire ban or not. So when we get days that are over 25 in this FFDI measure, the Forest Fire Danger Index, that means we have high risk of fire. That means all the other switches for fire are on, so we need to stop ignition. That's why we have total fire bans. And when we get days over 50, it's severe or higher. So there's a really high chance of severe fire if we get ignition. And we can see in these graphs that the FFDI in Australian landscapes has been up over time. We see that in the top graphs. And that trend isn't particularly strong, but it's increasing. What is really interesting is the second lot of graphs. We see burned area in relation to the number of days that are over 25 or over 50. That relationship is extremely strong. What it means is that we only need a little increase in FFDI over time for a big increase in the burnt area that we see in our landscapes in Australia. And that's why we see that increase in burnt area. And that is represented often in big fires like these 2019 fires. If we look at the changes across Australia and some of these key measures that relate to fuel dryness, we can see that the changes are not happening in the direction we post. So if they're red, it means they're going up. We're getting changes in FFDI, so fire danger going up. Same with changes in maximum temperatures. But what's really interesting here is if you look at this map, see here, something that not many people would recognise is that switch I talked about, ignition, that spark you need to start a fire. We're creating climates that are actually conducive to that, we're actually creating climates that have more dry lightning. And you can see where in those red areas that's occurring primarily. If you think back to that map that I showed you earlier, it maps onto that exactly. During wildfires, we often have a lot of debate and propaganda about things like arson being the cause. We're actually creating conditions where ignition is becoming much more likely to change the climate. So we're turning that switch on, and we're turning it on at the same time. We're increasing fuel dryness and fire weather. Fuel loads are never actually much of a limiting factor in our systems. There is always enough fuel to burn in an Australian forest. You need to turn those other switches on for the wildfires to occur, and that's what we've been doing in recent decades. Obviously, when these fires happen, they have massive ramifications and what's involved in defendants, main family animals. We're in the path of those massive 20 million bushfires, and the sobering statistic was 3 billion animals. And that's just thinking about things with the backbone, not thinking about invertebrates and things like that. We're actually in the path of those wildfires. So 3 billion individual animals' lives touched by those fires. But for me, it's actually not the individual fire events that are most concerning, but the changes in the fire regimes. That means the changes in the frequency and the interval of fires. When we see changes in the fire regime, so we have big fires happening more often, that's when we have the possibility of entire landscapes transforming. This is a picture from around Mount Hotham. There's some alpine ash forests, big tall forests, one of the tallest forests in the world. One fire can be good for an alpine ash forest. It means that it'll drop the seed in the canopy and a bunch of recruits will come and we'll get more alpine ash. 2 fires within 20 years, you've lost your alpine ash ecosystem. Hasn't got to adulthood to drop the next seed. You're now going to catch a shrub. And this is where we see fire as a major trigger for rapid landscape scale change, vegetation, the ecosystems that we experience. And the fact that this species lives on these mountains means that our historic fire regimes are very different to what we're seeing now. We're getting fires within 20 years, the time it takes for this species to reach maturity. And that has obvious implications for the creatures that live in these forests. Up the top there is probably the most charismatic animal you may never have heard of, the great fire, which is absolutely decimated by fires like this and relies on these big tall trees and the hollows that they have in order to live. It's a threatened species, and it's one that is a major concern as these fire regimes change, along with the other valley right out there. So that's just a little snapshot about fire in this system. Happy to answer questions when we get to the next section. Is that right?
Yeah, after a few talks.
Yeah, after a few talks. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nimmo, for quite a forthright and compelling overview of fire. So I have the great pleasure of introducing, in fact, reintroducing Councillor Gemma from Jenny at the beginning of the session. But Jenny, I believe, will be talking to us about the great work that Wagga City Council is doing on climate change. So please welcome Councillor Gemma.
Thank you, Greg. I am told that your introduction gives me a little bit extra time to speak, so that's really great. Now, if I can find my talk, here it is. Okay. All right, what I want to talk about tonight is where we are, first of all. So that map tells you this is our local government area, so I'm drilling down to just take a very local look tonight. The city of Wagga is pretty much in the middle of it. The Murrumbidgee River is a real focal point for our local government area, which ranges from Gulbali in the east to Wagga in the south, Cumula and Tara in the east, and we have 2 villages to the north of the Murrumbidgee River, Kurta and Power. So it's a reasonably large local government area. I also want to let you know just about the difference between our council's corporate net zero emissions target and the community target. Give you a bit of an overview of our emissions profile and a look at some of our draft community roadmap. Now, a point that I just really need to emphasise is that the charts that I show you today are from a draft roadmap that hasn't yet been presented to the council. So vote upon. So it could change. The councillors might require some changes. It then will go out on public exhibition for 20 days. The community has their chance to feedback, and it may well change again. So please understand it's very much a draft what I'm about to show you. And I'm just going to go a little bit rogue because I'm going to play a little bit of a theme for myself tonight, and I want to make it about active citizenship. Because the roadmap is very much about citizens, no matter who they are, what work they do, whatever their role is in life. It's about having a chance to contribute to what our future is going to be. So there's choices to be made, and a large part of that will be made by our community. So this is the big picture of what our emissions profile looks like. Not a pretty picture. So I think I'd like to mention first of all that Wagga Council established the corporate net zero targets in 2021. Now, the corporate net zero targets relates to the business of council. So that's a separate target. Council decided on trying to achieve net zero by 2040. And the corporate targets relate to all the things that are about council business, you know, the roadworks that we're doing, the buildings that we operate, the swimming pool, the land waste centre, all those sorts of things. So it covers a lot. So then last year we amended our community net zero targets, which is still a net zero target for 2050. But we added in a change whereby we agreed with New South Wales Government's interim target. So we're trying to reduce our emissions by 2030. We've got targets for that. And the other thing is to mention is that in regard to the corporate emissions, council's actually quite well on its way to achieving net zero by 2040. And that's mainly to do with our food organics, garden organics. You probably know that as FOGO locally. Having taken all that food and garden waste out of the waste system, out of landfill, it's now going to a massive composting facility, and that's really made a huge impact on council's corporate net zero targets. Now, just getting back to this chart here, you can see that energy is the largest aspect of Wagga's greenhouse emissions profile by a long way, and followed by transport, agriculture waste, industrial processes, and fugitive emissions. The only aspect of our profile that's actually capturing and storing carbon is the land use change and forestry category, which is that LUE you see that one, the green down the bottom there, which I'll come to that and show you what a positive sort of story that is. So I'm going to go through all of the aspects of the council's draft roadmap. But I do want to let you know that we established a community advisory forum for this last year, and that community advisory forum consists of people ranging from, some Wagga climate activist groups, representatives from those, but also from the agriculture, business, transport. If you think of a sector in Wagga, we've got a rep on that advisory committee who's helped us to come up with the roadmap that I'll show you in just a moment. So actually, and I'll show it to you now. Energy accounts for more than half of the Wagga's global emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, this is the energy that's used to power and heat our homes and offices and factories. And of course, emissions can be reduced in a lot of different ways through efficiency, and things like purchasing green power or installing solar. So if we just for a moment focus on that Energy 08, which says energy power purchase agreements for renewable energy. Council's already done that for its own corporate purposes. And through it, not only have we purchased a long contract for green power, Council is going to save a lot of money with that. So now, through this community roadmap and these suggestions, what we want to do is encourage businesses, industry to also, unfortunately, us regular citizens can't really do the power purchase agreements, therefore large-scale energy users, but that's who we really want to encourage to get onto those power purchase agreements. Next is transport, which makes up about a third of our emissions profile. And really, I'll just whiz through this one because there is, I've only got a few minutes. So I just want to focus on number 2 there, which is increase the amount of active travel. Anyone who lives in Wagga will be aware that council has sort of built a foundation for this through tens and tens and tens of kilometres of active travel pathways around the city. So we've got combined walking and cycleways, which are really fantastic. People use them a lot recreationally, but there's a lot of potential there that if we can encourage people to move out of their cars and into commuting to work on those active travel pathways, that would be a great thing for people to do. So you can see there's a range of other things there, but I just unfortunately don't have time to go into all of them. Now, agriculture is arguably the most important industry in our local government area, and it's also one of the most significant contributors to our emissions profile. So livestock farming in particular produces large amounts of greenhouse gases due to methane emissions from digestive systems of cows, sheep and other ruminants. But one example here for how we want to encourage the communities through, so number 1 there, implementing regenerative agricultural practices. And I think probably you'd all be aware of a group called Farmers for Climate Change. They are quite active locally, but even more active on a national level. And there's quite a move towards regenerative farming. Well, you know, there's scope, I think, through encouragement of some of the farming businesses and some of the multinational farming organisations to start making the move into this. So it would be nice if we could head there. Waste is about 6% of Wagga's local emissions profile, and landfill is a significant source of our greenhouse gas emissions. So, you know, as methane is released into the atmosphere through decomposition of organic waste, everyone in the community will benefit from reducing their waste, so particularly food waste, which costs the average Australian household $2,000 to $2,500 every year. So this is a win-win situation. I guess if I could focus on one of them, number 1, participating in circular economy initiatives. We want to encourage business, industry and other government organisations to really get into this, which a lot are doing, but for some it's very embryonic sort of situation. Circular economy refers to something that starts in the manufacturing process, so that everything that we use can either be reused or recycled, but it can be easily broken down into its constituent parts for that purpose. So we need that to start in manufacturing. And we've got an area in Wagga which is called the Special Activation Precinct. It's an industrial area that's in the process of being developed. And that's one of the big focuses of that new Special Activation Precinct is recycling, circular economy, net zero emissions. So we're trying for that in Wagga with our industrial area. And 4% of our emissions, I'm getting the warning bell, is due to industrial processes and product use. So I'm actually just going to mention that and move on. And have a look at the really positive story for us, because land use change in forestry, also known as WLCF, is minus 12% of Wagga's emissions profile. So this is where we're getting some really positive things happening in terms of drawing carbon out of our atmosphere through a process called sequestration. And it's a really positive story for Wagga, and we feel that there's a lot of scope for the farming community to actually make some money out of this through either carving off areas of farmland that are going to retain biodiversity and be never to be developed, or cleared areas to be turned into forests through afforestation or reforestation. And just finally, I want to let you know that we will be monitoring and reporting back about this. We need to understand how well the community is understanding the issues and whether the information and education that's provided by council is actually helping people to transition and take positive action. And finally, for any of you who, when it comes to that exhibition period that I was talking about, you want to have your say, if you think that what I've shown you, when the roadmap comes out, if you feel it's inadequate, or if you think it's fantastic, we really want your feedback. So if you, I don't know if your camera will work from that distance, but if you want to, the QR code will get into our Wagga Connect system, and it will it will then give you notifications for when all these matters are coming up and your opportunity to be part of that active citizenship public feedback process, which we really appreciate. But I will be here. I've got the QR code, so later on, anybody who wants to talk to me and get that, I can share it with you. I will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and how wonderful this is. Some of the things that Marshall was talking about happening in Wagga and an opportunity for everybody to be involved. Which does bring me to our next pair of speakers. So we're very fortunate to have a couple of young speakers from Kildare with us today. We have McCorry and Eamon Kurta. So both are members of the Kildare Student Representative Council, and Ella's currently the school captain, school captain. And they've both got a passion for climate change that's been nurtured in different ways. I think for Eamon it emerged in year 9 from a teacher who put climate change into the classroom. And Ella was at the lead at Edinburgh Youth. They both have felt very supported by their teachers. We'll hear more about them a little bit later. And have taken a very strong leadership role in the school. So Ella and Eamon, welcome.
Good afternoon, honoured guests and speakers. Thank you for joining us today.
My name is Ella McCorry, and as Beck said, I'm the school captain at Kildare. I'm a proud young Wiradjuri person, and I've always felt a deep connection to the natural world around me. My Aboriginal spirituality teaches me that all things, including you and I, every plant and every animal, and even the dirt beneath us, has a soul and shares an inextricable connection.
I am Eamon Kurta. I am part of SLC, Kildare Catholic, and have grown up surrounded by messages of social justice and caring for the environment. Through the church, my education, and from my lifelong hunger with David Attenborough, I learned about the complexity of nature and all the amazing things the natural world encompasses. And yet, the more I heard messages of what to do right, the more I also started to hear the negative and scary predictions for what may be my future.
We are the young people of Wagga and are currently completing our HSC. As we begin to apply to universities and imagine the next story of our lives, we want the future of Wagga to inspire us and invite us to stay. Many people are scared or shocked by climate science. I know that at times I've become very anxious because of the predictions and presenters.
Sometimes the statistics and the urgency for action that make me feel far more anxious than in school assignment, forming up showcase will be broken against.
I have spent many sleepless nights feeling paralysed and hopelessness and guilt. Guilt that I, as a 13, 14 or 15-year-old, was not doing enough to secure my own future. For many young people, the burden of climate change makes it difficult for us to dream about our futures with optimism. Will there be any glaciers left in the Arctic? Will the Dead Sea have dried up? And will I ever get the chance to see the colours of the Great Barrier Reef? I found it impossible to imagine what career I might want. Obviously, I had to choose a path in environmental science or conservation. There was no other option. And as for finding love or having children, there would be no time. And if I failed, this place would be no place for children. I felt so much emotion and felt so helpless.
Growing up with this, casting it off as misinformation, exaggeration, or fake news became my coping mechanism. I went from avoiding bladder and single-use plastics to simply not caring, because that was easier than having to process the anxiety and sadness. Yet education also provided me with hope to visions of sustainable cities where we have time to walk together, time to be with our loved ones, and healthier lives, as well as saving our planet. Learning about the New York City's pilot, the Champs-Élysées redesign, and One Central Park in Sydney, rejuvenated my love for the environment. I learned of some of the incredible initiatives already happening in Gulbali, such as Riverina and the Murrumbidgee wetlands, further opening my eyes to the possibilities of a future where the best is still yet to come.
Young people today are filled with hope. We know that change is possible. We want to be the change makers, but we don't want to rebel against other generations. We want to work together and strive ahead alongside our elders as peers.
We are inspired by our parents and grandparents. Their generations pushed back when the alarm over the loss of the ozone layer sounded. They changed their behaviours and put pressure on governments and businesses to help eliminate ozone depleting chemicals.
We need to join together, because together we have the strength to make a change. When enthusiasm, cooperation, and passion becomes the norm, we are more powerful.
We need to activate our networks and get people talking. Society needs us, the people here today, who obviously care about this issue, to speak out and help educate those out in the community who perhaps owners of land, who are confused or don't see climate change as a major problem.
Let's build bridges with those around us. Ending the silence and isolation mitigates the anxiety, helping us to stay inspired. Institutions have great power in shaping society. So have the conversations at Sunday nights, at football games on the weekend, and at school each week. When we encounter ideas in multiple places, we normalise it, changing our society for the betterment of our common good.
We must do this with inclusivity and compassion. Listening without judging will help turn climate action from a divider into a uniter. Bringing people together in order to push up and put pressure on institutions, businesses and governments to make a difference.
And that is of key importance, to help big institutions in this fight. Many of us look to the large-scale decisions and policymakers to address climate change on behalf of us. We expect them to take the lead and implement solutions, but we need to support them when they do. Rather than have these establishments make decisions on behalf of us, let's have them make decisions with us.
We want everyone here to feel inspired, to recognise that we are a community. What we have heard here this afternoon does not have to stay within these walls. Let's make climate action a conversation across generational, organisational, and institutional boundaries. Parents, talk to your kids, and kids talk to your parents. Employees, make this known to your bosses, and bosses, please listen. Schools, incorporate positive conversation and visible, radical action into the everyday lives of students. And politicians, listen. Help spread the word and do something about it, because there's a whole generation who feels so passionately about this.
Talk must lead to change. There must be action. For us, the conversation has led to action in our schools, with a waste audit underway. It is our hope that in the near future, all schools, including our own, go beyond this, and embed sustainability into the core of what they do. We need safe spaces to be created throughout Wagga and potentially further. And whilst teenagers can't change Wagga on our own, each of us can do our part. If we can change our homes, impact our workplace, then the impact will cascade throughout Wagga, creating a community that unites generations, strengthened by bringing climate action to our growing city.
It is time to turn from the safety of indifference and despair to a empowered optimism and stubbornness, and efforts to build a stronger future together, where Wagga invites us to step.
Together we have nothing to lose. Together we have everything to gain.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Amy. It's been a powerful speech. The importance of building bridges is paramount, and the power of conversation. So thank you very much for bringing these points to our attention. I think it's incumbent of all of us, all the generations, to stand high and stand with young folks that are watching these ways forward. So thank you. Our next speaker is Gemma Purcell. So Gemma is the chair of Murrumbidgee Landcare. It is on the New South Wales State Advisory Landcare as well. Gemma's farm at Grong hosts the country's largest community-owned solar park. I just grabbed that right, so quite remarkable. And she's been central in some efforts to take community ownership of important community aspects. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you, Gemma, to talk about some of the change you've been making. Thank you.
Hello. Hi everyone. Good to see a room full of grumpy people. Like grumpy people. I'm Gemma. I'm in Grong. I feel like not speaking because after listening to Ella and Eamon, I think our job is done. These kids are good. Good. Beautiful. Thank you. My climate journey is not an academic one. It's as a citizen. Sometimes too much of a citizen. Long time ago, I think in my narcissistic 20s, I said to my mum, I like when I was little. And she said, in her best country telephonist voice, oh, darling, largely unregarded. How things are. I spent the first years of my life down the creek, on the family farm, largely unregarded. It was my place. And I was aware at that tiny age that there had been people there. There were still voices down that creek, in those huge trees, and in those placed stones in the creek. And it shaped my relationship with Earth for my life. We move on, travel, school, work. 1993, I'm on the beach online, and the eastern seaboard of Australia is on fire. I'm not awake to climate change. Later in the 90s, I finally get it. I found a note in my recipe book today. I think it was 1997, above a scone recipe. It was 46 degrees, and I had noted in my recipe book to planet will fry us or freeze us before it could start. 2006-7, I had returned home back to Gulbali at the Riverina Climate in Grong. We hit an Olympian drought. It was, you know, we had media blaming the dust storms and drought. Dust storms aren't caused by drought, they're caused by droughts. They're caused by lack of work. It was less than number one. It was terrifying. 2009, Black Summer fires through Victoria. And then again, 2019, whole eastern seaboard hit up. And our academics demonstrated that. Then we plunged into a pandemic. By the time we popped out in 2022, I think we were all joyous to come out of the pandemic. We thought it was going to be. I'm going to read you something I wrote on. The early stages of 2022 brought many of us to the brink of amorphous and collective undoneness, watching helplessly as relentless floodwaters broke banks, levies, all known records to take houses, businesses, parks, schools, people and pets, bushland and wildlife of Greater Lismore into its drifting out. It left those of us lucky enough to only be witnesses, gritty-eyed with its truth, dismally grateful for our own safety and sleepless in the knowledge we might be next. This is climate change. This is not a knowable target. This cannot be greenwashed, trade with, rebranded, or fit down the road. Our monster, we made it. In this context, do we look for hope? I don't think so. For hope is the comfort feel and the excuse we give ourselves when we are simply too far to act on the truth of a matter. We think and hope things will turn out okay. The flip side of hope is dread. It's all too late. The challenge is too great. It's inevitable. The outcome is the same, the paralysis and fear of acting. The fear of making and owning bold decisions that may change the course of events that we see unfolding. We have seen unfolding now since the 80s. In a time of global unrest, financial uncertainty, and unprecedented pressures on our accepted current global systems, we have no time left to reimagine and establish a new way to be and to thrive. At the same time, ensuring that the planetary systems We live within, we are of, we are only carbon. We are just lucky walking bags of chemicals. We are no different from the earth. Our skin is not a barrier, it is a membrane. We are of this earth. We have to act so that the planet we depend on and everything remains intact and robust for many, many generations. For me, what that looks like for me, I had to act like a lot of us at the beginning of 2020, between this more climate, hope of an election, the invasion of Ukraine. I thought I had to act. I was invited to chair Landcare. I thought, why me? I'm so ordinary. And then I thought, okay, I'll step up and Landcare covers 84,000 kilometres. We have 29 voluntary groups across 5 regions. We sit from Yass down to Hay. We have some 1,000 other Grong people like me who are acting, who can sleep at night because they're acting. I feel like everyone in this room also is acting. I'd like all of us to take our contributions, not only act, but do what our young people have pleaded with us to do, and that is to use our voices. We have to be brave enough to speak up at school, home, in the playground. Another, that 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, I'll tell you quickly about Haystacks on the gun. Very, very exciting. It's a 1.5 meg community-owned smaller company. It sits on 4 hectares on our farm. It doesn't mess with our farm business. It's very small, it's very simple. It generates enough power for 900 homes. That's community owned. It has enabled people who live in rental accommodation with houses with coffee months roof lines to enter the solar and stock market by buying a plot in the solar garden in the same way you would own a plot in a community garden and grow your veggies. There are people all over Australia who own 3.5 kilowatts in the solar garden, and they are growing their own energy on our farm. We grow meat, we grow your breakfast toast, we grow your breakfast oats, we grow part of your beer, we even grow your hummus and your dal sometimes, so why not grow your energy? Thank you. Clearly, I have lots to say. Say a lot, all the time, very confident. I'm also a super klutz with PowerPoint, so appreciate that you don't need slides to hear a story. Really helpful when we get to the end. Thank you.
Gemma, thank you very much for your inspiring words, and I'd like to hear about the power of our kids. I'm pleased to know that. So now actually is the time to hear a little bit more from Gemma, as well as from Dale, from Ella, and Eamon. So if you'd like to come up and take your seats at the panel. What time are we going to take the audience? Okay, yeah, we will. So take a seat, please, where you're comfortable. And while those of you in the audience are thinking of the questions that you'd like to put to the panel, might start us off with a bit of a discussion point. And I'll give it to Eamon and Ella first. I'd love to hear from everybody on the panel a little bit about what it means to see generations working together, to build bridges, come together on some of these opportunities to collaborate these great challenges, but with the vision that we've seen outlined. So Ella, Eamon, would you like to start us off?
Thanks, Beth. I think conversation is a really good place to start, especially if you're in the lives of young people. Because for a lot of us, it can be really overwhelming and, as many people have said, paralyzing. So having those conversations makes us feel less alone, makes everyone feel less alone, and it creates the opportunity for us to start creating action. Because It's a thought stay in your head, you can't really do much, but if you something about it, you become a team, you can put pressure on other people and start to make a change.
I definitely say it would build hope if everyone's working on it together. Yeah.
Great, Ellen, thank you very much. Jenny, would you like to add something more?
Yeah, look, I think generational interaction around these issues that we're all dealing with is a really, it's the place to start. We need to do it together, and I just genuinely hope that, you know, young people like Ella and Amy will be giving council feedback about all the things that they're doing locally. And, you know, when it comes to our roadmap, you know, let us know what you think, give that feedback, not just about that, but about everything that your council does. Let your state government know, let your federal government know. You know, this is the thing about active citizenship is kind of getting out there and getting the word out through your conversations, but also engaging with the political parts of Australia as well.
Oh, just join Landcare. We have families, teenagers, families, 94-year-olds who work together, talk together, argue together, and have a very low emissions campfire and a sausage afterwards together. It's very much a no-brainer.
Great, thank you, Gemma and Dale. It was great seeing your response.
Yeah, I suppose a slightly different slant, but I think conversations across cultures as well, and you know, particularly in this landscape, obviously, conversations with First Nations people, and in terms of generations, the urgency actually to have those conversations with elders, with the immense knowledge that they hold about how this landscape works, and with knowledge of adaptation over time. There's something that is often missed with regards to adaptation in Australian context, is that First Nations people have adapted to these changes before. As to here, and more severe than the changes we're experiencing now, this landscape's been here for a long time. We have a lot to learn. We have to come to that conversation with a lot of humility.
Beautiful, thank you. Now's an opportunity for the audience. Thank you. Thanks, Renee.
You know, the Shires are doing governments, and they have the same roadmap as Wagga's doing, like other towns like Gulbali or Griffin, or like, you know what they're doing, like they're following the same road as Wagga, or if they know about it.
Great question. Thank you. It sounds like one.
I think so, yeah, thank you very much for that. Look, I don't know exactly, but what I do know is that the roadmap that I was showing you before, with all the various suggestions in those areas of what could be done, has been designed at really quite a high level. So it's the kind of level that really any other local government area around our district could more or less just take it and make it their own if they wanted to do that. So it's available to everybody. We're happy to share. But like I said, it's still a draft. You know, I feel so lucky that Council very nicely let me do a preview tonight. That's a pretty unusual thing. So, but yeah, definitely we're happy to share, and it's great to see when other councils do. And I do know, I don't know just locally the ones that are around us, but I do know that lots of other councils around Australia have made their own roadmaps.
Thank you, Jenny. So once again, the power of conversations and working together. Great, thank you. I think we've got another one up here somewhere, do we? Go for it. Thanks.
How have the biodiversity from bushfires recovered and what is it?
Thanks. So for you now, I think.
What was the last part of the question? Oh, what's helped this? Yeah, so yeah, there's been a massive impact, obviously, and you don't understand how fires have impacted biodiversity over just a few years. Those impacts have felt for many decades, because fire, you know, through its effects on vegetation, you know, it consumes vegetation. It takes a long time for that vegetation to recover. If you think about things like tree hollows, it can take 150 years to replace tree hollows that might have been lost expand. In the short term, I think what we're seeing has been much more hopeful than perhaps what the narrative was around the fires as they were occurring. And I think and what I mean by that is a lot of species that people thought were likely to decline and starting to decline towards extinction have not declined as much, or some of them have actually bounced back. That's probably partly due to the fact that we had these really wet years following the fires, which actually isn't a coincidence. There's evidence that the fires actually partly produced those wet years through its effects on the atmosphere. So yeah, there's species like potoroos, for example, little kind of kangaroo type critters, which we thought were going to fare really badly. Some of them, they're finding them all over the place in the areas. And so there is a lot of hope there in terms of recovery, and I think that rainfall really helps it. The other thing that helps is small actions that people put into practice. Landcare groups, for example, putting nest boxes up for gliders and possums and things like that. They actually do have an effect. So that is one thing that people can do that has a tangible impact on the outcome of critters. There's a range of activities that do like that.
And Dale and Landcare projects are great now.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great question. Thank you. And we can't wait on the thoughts. We have to act. And areas of action from garden level, school level, you can do it from a hotel, but that is bigger, you know. You can create habitats in your garden. From a Landcare perspective, we've spent 25 years Murrumbidgee Landcare raising awareness about habitat corridors, working with farmers to create reserves, if you like, protecting corridors and habitat, protecting creeks, protecting the river, and as I said, protecting ground cover. Got quite a few projects on ground diversity, but these critters live with us and amongst us. They're not just down the river or down the creek, they're in our yards, they're in our trees, they're in our gardens, and everything that we do impacts on them, and we can impact on them positively. We can make decisions to, you know, plant the right food for that bird and make sure it's okay. Plant the right piece of protected habitat for the glider. It's the decisions we take now that might rejig Dale's research.
Thanks so much. Gemma, I think we've got one up here.
Yes, those young people, when you go to your next sporting event, are you taking your own drink bottle? Are you going to be one of the ones that goes to the Oasis and buys a bottle from the machine and then drops it in so no recycling things there? Are you going to think about the cap that's on the top and whether you can actually do a circular economy with that, like the Lids for Kids program is encouraging you to do? And the people at the back, the older ones, are you thinking about land, the caring for the country? The Academy of Science this year has focused on caring for the country, and anyone who's interested can watch the recordings of cultural burning and all the other ones that have been happening every second month this year. It's an amazing world of experience. And sometimes when we've got little ones, and I've got a 2-week-old granddaughter, you're the ones who are going to be adults making decisions for my grandchildren. So I need you, adolescents, now to grow up and take that charge, because some of the politicians aren't doing enough for us.
Yeah, I think we'll take that as a comment. Thank you. And I think the work that Ella and Eamon and the Kildare school community are doing specifically on waste, and they are being very forthright, very responsible, making great changes. So we've got another question here.
Gemma, you mentioned grumpiness quite a few times in your talk, and I live with, I work with a very grumpy person who's a very strong climate advocate. We have a very different take on things to you, and I find it's bordering on doomist, and I find it quite hard to deal with. So I went off and did I'm doing an online course, and basically on some data on how to grumpiness and diplomacy.
gonna say
So, and I want to encourage you to do, but I just wondered what your take on that was. You get all that angsty kind of energy instead of it just coming out in a rage, actually being able to focus it, articulate it, and recognise where the problems are, where the conversations, who the best audience is for the value of your time, and your latent grumpiness, which we can turn into diplomacy, and just your thoughts on that.
Long time ago, Joan Gemma, who is in the realm of goddess, in my view, said, get angry and then get organised. Turn it into action, or you'll eat yourself alive. You won't sleep, you know, and that I was at that point. Thank you, great question. And we're surrounded by people who are, well, it's all over, what's the point? We'll party till the end, or it'll all turn out all right. That's the hope. Fine. And somewhere through, we all have to steer a course of action. I live with permanent grump. And a long time ago, an East German burger, right? Is there worse? No. So I live with a person who sees the holes in everything. The problem with that is no, but what you have to do is, and for a while, it's tricky. And then I realised he's actually shining light on all the boulders, which then showed me where the path was. And I think we have to use those grumps in the community and listen to them and listen. Nearly all of our fears, nearly all of our negative opinions are coming from fear. And we're expressing our fear as opinion. And we've got to hear that opinion to get to the fear undo. Once we've undone our fear, then we might use an overlay of grumpiness or an overlay of humour. It enables us to act. And a lot of negative is here, whether that's political, loss of power, economic fears. I mean, the economy, who cares? We made it up in the first place. We can undo it. We can change it. You know, doesn't necessarily answer your question, but I think, tell me that later.
Thanks, Gemma, and thanks for the great question. I think, Ella, would you like to add some remarks on how grumpiness and their role in emotions?
But I think grumpiness as well as fear can be a synonym of passion. So it is really important that we can speckle the hope and action which gives us hope into all of our thoughts and emotions, how we're dealing with climate and climate anxiety. But grumpiness can also lead to inspiration, and it can help us to continue being inspired and not turn off the switch.
Thanks, Ella. We've got one up here. Go ahead.
I have a question for Jenny. A few Sundays ago, it was a bit warmer and actually a glorious day, and my husband and I took the opportunity to prune our crepe myrtles. And off we headed to the tip with a trailer load of green waste, which cost us $37.40. I'm aware that there's lots of councils who don't charge for green waste. Do you have any concerns that in Wagga people may retain those prunings to burn in a fire bucket in their backyard, rather than actually utilise the opportunity to put them into recycling?
Look, I probably don't know the full answer to what you're asking. I guess if you prune your trees or shrubs or whatever, cut it up into small enough, put it into your green bin, then if you live in town, then it's going to be taken out there and sort of put into that FOGO system. In regard to taking out a trailer load to the tip, I'm actually not sure about that. I'm sorry, but again, please, when it comes to our roadmap, these are the kinds of feedback that we need from our community around what's helpful and what's not helpful, and if there's a council policy that's working to the detriment of people, achieving what they need to do, then you know, you need to let us, well, I would appreciate anybody letting us know. And I guess though, if we have a look at the bigger picture too, councils, I guess that charge is about discouraging people from, you know, sending it out. And we don't want it burned either. So actually, I'm sorry, I don't know the full answer to that.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and great question. It speaks to the importance of working together, bringing knowledge from different experiences, forging that way forward. So I think we've got one final question, and then we'll shortly. Please go ahead.
I want to say how incredibly you were absolutely wonderful. You were open. You expressed your anxiety. In all the years that I've been working on these issues, I made the first presentation to the New South Wales government on change in 1988. I formed the first package for the federal minister to take the using Berlin versus I've done many other things. What I've come to conclude is that there are two drivers that we need to address. And one of them is psychology of this. To really understand what's deep in our anxiety. And you said how anxious you feel, and I completely get it. And I think we really haven't understood the psychological drivers that we need to address in the others. The other thing I would say is the equity issue. I've spoken to the High Commissioner for Botswana, and she made it very clear to me that this is not an issue for the South, global South. They feel it's an issue for us. If you read Untitled Chapters, because the nutmeg, people talk about colonialism and how that is driving us. We have an enormous challenge, but there are so many positive things that are out there as examples, where people are working together. Up in the Northern Australia Council, maybe, there's a fabulous example of people realising that what they've got is the past and what they need to do is create the future. The community back in Dandenong were building their solar and energy systems themselves. There are so many positive, wonderful things. But if we don't really get to the bottom of the psychological drivers and how we need to address those, we are really in trouble. So thank you, that was brilliant.
Thank you for that uplifting comment from brilliant panel. And I think we can finish on that note, actually. We'll not quite finish the event, there's one more surprise, but we'll release our brilliant panelists from the stage. So thank you very much. They all worked out as trying to be with quality. So before we wrap up, the surprise is actually, I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Jenny Nimmo to the stage. Make a couple of comments about something that's coming to Wagga very soon. So Jenny is with the Climate Solutions Centre at the Australian Museum, which you might expect to be in Canberra, but it's actually in Sydney. That's right. So Jenny, if you'd like to go, please help me.
You might have noticed in the wonderful presentation from Aaron, that was very powerful. That they featured some interesting slides that were in the exhibition. And that was an exhibition on Future Now. It's a museum put together. And it's a touring exhibition and it's coming to Wagga. On Monday, it will be in the Wagga City Council building. Do you go there? It's full of wonderful ideas of what you can do to live more sustainably, really highlights the benefits of living sustainably and generating future, and listening to First Nation ways of caring for the country. So there are 3 dioramas. One of them is a house and garden, sustainable house and garden. One of them is an urban landscape, very green, and then there's a rural and natural environment with a bit of ocean as well, with we try as well. So each of those environments is a combined human nature landscape, which has lots of really wonderful things that we're all be consuming ourselves.
And the idea is that helping people see how there are so many solutions available to us now before advance. And the message is really, we have what we need now to create the future we want.
Just making sure you won't forget that.
What is it? What do you do? Oh, thanks. So just a few extra big points. There are highlight information. Don't always great. Everyone loves diagrams. You don't really need any language to be able to get something out of these diagrams. You don't need to be able to speak English. There's also, though I should say, there is language provision for this text on our website, so for other languages. And there's also the videos with more deep dives to find out more. And basically we're highlighting all the key solutions that are available, that are already available to us actually now. Some of them are a bit more coming soon, such as an EV toll. So these are being developed in Australia, these electric vertical takeoff and machines, which are these different types of solutions, nature-based, community-based, technology-based solutions are in each of the diagrams. So lots of fun, great for bringing your family to, bring your classes. This is when it's in Albury, down the road, lots of fun. I came and gave little sessions for the various school groups, but I'm sure there'll be lots of interest in the local community, as well as another school that hope in adding your own content around the edges. I know that the sustainability team in the council are keen to be talking to people about what can be added around the edges to localise this exhibition. And I hope that the climate action groups and Landcare and other groups as well, as well as traditional owners, of course, will come and provide a lot of extra content there. So it's not just expanding the exhibition, it's something that will be much more rich and wonderful. It will be in Wagga for 3 months at the April September. Great. And that's it. I also think highlight that if anyone is interested in attending a net zero workshop, we've got one coming up which is directed to cultural institutions, particularly museums, galleries, libraries, and other cultural institutions. A free workshop at the Australian Museum on the 1st of September. So just to get your networks and about. Right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Jenny. And I've been fangirling over these dioramas since I first learned about them. So I'm so excited to come into Wagga. Be a great place to have those empowering employee conversations and perhaps have you stay on the Wagga roadmap as well, like council changes. So now it's time to officially close the event. Thank you all so much for coming out on what is such a chilly evening, rain in the sky. We hope that you've made some new connections and tried some new ideas. And ideally, moving forward with hope or grumpy, whatever it is that works for you. A couple of final remarks before we close is just to acknowledge the partners who made this event possible. So that's Sturt University, Kildare Catholic College, Wagga City Council, and the Australian National University. I particularly want to acknowledge Renee. Renee, can you stand up and wave? Amazing for organising this event. And I also want to force Shaz to stand up. So this is Sharon. Teacher at Kildare Catholic College, who really started every change led to none. Shaz will not forgive me. A quick note, some of you might have received an email if you registered for the event that there's going to be a congregation at the RSL in Wagga dinner afterwards. I don't think we've got anything formal happening. It's the place to continue the conversation if you'd like to. So many thanks to our brilliant speakers, our panelists, our facilitators, everybody who's been involved tonight in both sessions. And on that, have a lovely